Blue Dot, talent-wise, interiors and infospace. Moon Express is working on idea like moon mining. Biome is working to achieve the goal of making illness elective. Extremely interesting concepts which he's working on. He's also on the board of Singularity University, where he's focused on educating and inspiring leaders to address humanity. He's also on the board of X Prize Foundation, where he's focused on using incentive prices to find solutions to many of the societal challenges. And I must share with the audience that Naveen sir has been pretty active in the philanthropic activities also. He has also been awarded several honors like Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Albert Einstein Technology Medal, Ellie Island Medal of Honor, Most Creative Person by East Company, Top 50 Philanthropists, and so on. If I start reading out his CV, I think probably an hour will be less for that. Without going much into the detail, I must welcome you, sir. And this is really great to have you among us. I hope it must be an exciting moment for you too, to coming back to the alma mater after almost like 40 years. How do you feel
yes,
now?
And first of all, it's an honor and a pleasure. It is an honor. This is something you always want to go back and have wonderful memories of the time you spent at the University of Roorkee at that time. I think it's just an amazing feeling to be talking to the young entrepreneurs because they are the future. We are living in this one of the most amazing time in the human history. There has never been a better time to be alive. This is the time where everyone who is listening to this has a potential to go out and solve a problem that could impact billions of people's lives, right? There has never been a time where, you and I have access to the same technology, same resources that the richest person in the world has. We all have access to the Amazon server. We access the latest technology, the cutting edge stuff. And it literally just takes one person to say, enough is enough, and they can go out and solve the problem. So to me, I'm just very, very excited. My only request would be, please don't call me sir. It makes me feel really, really old.
But yeah, I'll come back to the main question for this discussion. These are some extraordinary times, especially for the startups and the entrepreneurs. We know that startups anyhow they do run on very limited amount of resources. And that's how basically they make money. Right now in these situations, there are some dilemma. First of all, I would like to hear from you because you also have companies who are almost like running in a very niche fashion. How are you coping up with these kind of new challenges? Especially you are in US and East Coast, you must be witnessing this dramatic turn of events. What exactly are you facing right now? And how do you responding to this?
So first of all, the best time to start a company is when in these tough times. In fact, if you look at every successful company from Apple to most of other successful companies, they were started in the time of recession. So to me, this is the best time to go out and find a problem and solve. As I was saying before, I think we had the network issues. There has never been a better time in the human history because today we have so many of these exponential technologies at our disposal that we can go out and solve some of the biggest problems. The idea of this mindset of scarcity that we all have, that resources are somehow limited. The resources are unlimited. There has never been more capital available to entrepreneurs. There have been, never been more technologies available to entrepreneurs. There has never been more resources in terms of the technological resources, in terms of computing resources, in terms of networking resources, in terms of the manpower human resources from all over the world. All you have to do is come up with something that's inspiring enough that someone wants to dedicate their life to doing it, and you will find everything will actually be attracted to you. So if you want to start a company that can help 1 billion people live a better life, I can tell you that money will come to you. The people will want to work for you because the smartest people in the world want to work on the biggest problems facing humanity. So if you want to go out and solve a problem, find something that will, inspire the best and the brightest around the world to help you do that.
That's great to hear, sir. I've been listening to some of your videos, and what I could make out of it is that you are an eternal optimism. And probably that optimism is still intact out there. So it's really great to hear these things.
it's not just optimism, because optimism is something that people feel that it is, out there because you feel positive. It's not about looking at the world as is. It's about looking at the world what it can be. That means if you can imagine the world that you want to create, there is not only you can inspire millions of people to help you create that world. So the only thing that limits us to what we can achieve is our imagination. So when we put a limit on ourselves, and even the ones that we think that love us the most, even they place the limit on us. They will tell you that you can do anything you want. Sky is the limit, without realizing that the sky doesn't exist. The sky is nothing but a figment of our imagination. When you go from Earth to the moon, you don't say, Mom, I just passed sky. Right? There is no sky. We create these skies in our lives because we create these hurdles that we think we can't cross until someone teaches us and tells us that you can actually cross them. So every time you feel that something can't be done, just believe it. You are the only one who believes it can't be done. That means you've taken yourself out of solving that problem, and someone else is going to come and believe it can be done, and they're going to do it.
You have worked in areas which are like quite varied. You have worked in IT industry, then you went on for doing something else, and then you are doing Moon Express, then you are into healthcare. How exactly do you identify a particular problem area, and then how do you approach to convert that problem area into a commercially viable and saleable product?
So I'm sorry, I lost you for the last 30 seconds. So I'm going to, can you, for some reasons, my audio did not work for the last 30 seconds. I think you were asking me that I worked on various different sets of industries and various companies in different industries, and how does that work? So to me, actually, that is one of the key to success. The minute you become good at something, the minute you become expert at anything, in my humble opinion, you become useless in that industry. That means you become an incrementalist. If you are an absolute expert in what you're doing, the best you can do is do it 10% or 15% better than anyone else. But if you want to do something 10 times or 100 times better than anyone else, then you have to think from a completely new perspective. That means every time I start a company, I want to know nothing about that industry. And that allows me to challenge the foundation of everything that experts have taken it for granted, right? So when we were looking at going to the space, I had no idea. When my first company was in the IT industry, I have never seen a computer in my life. What I was trying to say was that as an expert, the best you can do is to make an incremental improvement in the industry that you are in. But you go out and look at a completely different industry, like from me in the IT industry in the mobile area to information commerce, to space exploration, to healthcare. It allows me to challenge the foundation of everything that experts have taken it for granted, right? So that means you can go out and make something 10 times better or 100 times better. So in healthcare, everyone is focused on how do you cure a disease. What if you can, or in a chronic disease, they want to simply focus on managing a chronic disease. What if you can understand and digitize the human body so you understand every biochemical activities that are happening inside the body? So you're no longer looking at one monolithic body, but you look at the body as a chemistry. That what are the biochemical activities, and how can you use the food and the supplements as a medicine? How do you use the nutrition as a medicine to fundamentally change the biochemistry and prevent the disease from happening? Or if you already have a chronic disease, how do you reverse it? And a lot of the times people think this is such a novel concept. I mean, we knew this thousands of years ago in Ayurveda. I mean, in fact, even in the Western medicine, a Greek physician named Hippocrates, what did he say? He said, all diseases begin in the gut. Let food be thy medicine. Let thy medicine be the food. One man's food is another man's poison. My point is, we have always known that we can change the, illness is in our control. And the reason I said that when I started Wyoming, that can we make illness optional? That means, can we give you all the information that each one of us need about what's happening inside our body, and what can we do to actually prevent the diseases? And that means now, if you don't follow the guidance, then you essentially saying, I don't care if I become sick. And that's why that being sick is a choice rather than a matter of bad luck.
Sir, I want to have a bit more peek into your thought process. When you get into like deciding about Moon Express, What
Sure.
exactly was the trigger? How exactly did you move into developing a company like Moon Express?
Yeah. Any company you start, fundamentally, you have to ask yourself one single question, right? That God forbid I am actually successful in doing what I'm about to be doing. Would that change the lives of billions of people? That means, are you solving a problem that could help massive number of people? Because if you do that, by definition, you have this massive market size and a problem that is unsolved or unmet need. So first thing you ask yourself and saying, if I am successful in doing what I'm doing, would it help a billion people? That means now instantly you can create a multi-$100 billion company if you can solve that problem. The second thing you have to ask for yourself is this something you're willing to dedicate your life to? That means, are you willing to dedicate 5, 10 years of life to solving a problem? Right? And that means your passion should always be about that I care enough. That means I am not going to be just passionate about what I'm about to be doing. I am so obsessed. That means it's passion is for losers. The winners have obsession. That means they go to sleep thinking about it. They wake up and jump out of the bed thinking about it. And when you find something that is a massive enough problem. So with Moon Express, our thought was, all 9 billion of us are living on a single spacecraft. We call that spacecraft planet Earth. What if our spacecraft get hit by a large asteroid? The whole humanity, all 9 billion of us will just completely get wiped out. So if you go back 65 million years ago, dinosaurs were substantially larger species than us. When the dinosaur hit, guess what happened? All the dinosaurs got wiped out. And if you can think every dinosaur rolling on their grave, what would they be saying? They would be saying if they had one good entrepreneurial dinosaur, they would be roaming on the moon, Mars, and beyond. Now, let's not make the same mistake and become the dinosaur. That means instead of wiping out the whole humanity, why not learn to live on the moon or the Mars? And the only reason we can't do that is because somehow we always believe the only place we can live is on Earth. And it is, as an entrepreneur, the biggest thing you have to ask yourself is not about how to solve a problem. What question are you actually asking? So it becomes more important as an entrepreneur to ask the right question rather than to have the right answer. Because you can get the answers from lots of experts. The question is, what problem are you going to solve? So when I was starting Moon Express, everyone kept saying that even if you were to go to the moon, how are you going to grow the food on the moon? Right? How can we possibly live in their mind unless you can tell us how are you going to grow the food on the moon? That is a wrong question to ask. The right question to ask is, why do we eat food? Because when you ask yourself why we eat food, suddenly you realize the solution to the problems are many. Because we eat food to get energy and we eat food to get nutrition. Now, what if we can get energy from radiation? What if we can get energy from photosynthesis like plants do? What if the nutrition that we need are simply hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen? And there's plenty of water on the moon. That means you already have the ingredients, hydrogen and oxygen, H2O. Now, only problem now we have to solve is to find the nitrogen or take enough nitrogen. My point is, suddenly you took a problem that looked impossible and you broke it down to say, that's a simple problem to solve. And that is you can apply the same thesis in almost any entrepreneurial venture. So when I started a company called Viome, everyone kept saying, the gut microbiome is the key to the health. And I say, why is it that people are not solving the problem? If everyone believes the gut microbiome is the key and the problem is not getting solved, then there's got to be something wrong with that. And that because they were all asking the wrong question, that every one of them was focused on one thing: what are the organisms in our gut? And I say that is the wrong question to ask. The right question to ask would be, what are these organisms doing? And that simple change of that question about what these organisms are doing, we were able to find the technology that tells us biochemically what is happening inside the gut. And that changed the whole reason what foods you need, right? And that is why in 3 years, we have hundreds of thousands of people. We have built a massive company. And now we are able to show people that no longer people are telling us have depression, anxiety, obesity, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, and all types of, inflammatory diseases, metabolic diseases, neural diseases, and these things can all be solved because we ask the different question than what people were asking. So anyway, that's one way of doing it, and I can go on more as we go on, because other reason why entrepreneurs fail is they tend to solve the symptom of the problem rather than understanding the root cause of the problem. And I can give you some examples of how that works. So for example, we all believe the lack of fresh water is one of the biggest problems facing in many parts of the world, right? And let's assume you're an entrepreneur and say, you know what, I'm going to solve the problem of fresh water because it impacts billions of people living in Africa, India, and other places. And you say, look, I'm going to build the nano filters, I'm going to build a nano straw, and I'm going to go out and solve the problem of a fresh water. Until someone tells you that, hey, you're wasting your time, because did you ever ask yourself, why is there shortage of fresh water? And it turns out the majority of fresh water is used for agriculture. And then you say, oh, so the problem I really need to be solving is the agriculture problem. So can I build the aeroponic farming, hydroponic farming, and many ways to reduce the use of fresh water in agriculture? And you feel that you actually now understand the root cause of the problem, until you realize majority of the agriculture is used to feed the cattle. Right? And now you suddenly realize the way to solve the fresh water problem is not agriculture, but to actually minimize the use of cattle for feeding, right? And now if you can take a stem cell from a cow or anything else and simply build the biofactories to grow the muscle tissues, now basically you don't need to raise the cow, you don't need to raise the cattle. Instead, now you can have biofactories giving you the meat, and you have all the agriculture that we can use to feed the humans, and you have plenty of fresh water, right? So my point is, by understanding, suddenly the root cause of fresh water really was a synthetic biology problem of actually solving the problem of people wanting to eat meat, right? And that can be solved through synthetic biology, right? And that is the kind of concept, once you understand how these things fit together, any entrepreneur can go out and use the same concept in every industry, whether you are in manufacturing industry, real estate industry, and understanding these primary impact of the technology, the secondary impact of the technology, and the tertiary impact of the technology. And I can go on as you ask me more questions, we'll go on and I can explain it to you that how these things happen.
So sometimes there's a tendency for going for low-hanging fruit. I mean, the curtailment of the risk. And when you're talking about these things, we are actually trying to somehow work at the boundary of risk taking. I mean, just an hour back, I heard that the SpaceX rocket had again exploded in air, and it's like a big risk which he has taken. How do you think calculated risk and an entrepreneur do combine together to bring up a magic formula for success?
Entrepreneurs never take risk. This is a misnomer that entrepreneurs are risk takers. As a matter of fact, entrepreneurs are the biggest de-risker out there. So every time you start a company, you say, what are the biggest risks in this company? And what do? You take the biggest risk and you say, let me prototype it and solve that problem, because you don't want to take a risk. I mean, the last thing you want to do is take a risk, right? So entrepreneurs actually don't take risks. They simply understand what the risks are and they start to de-risk everything, right? To me, the biggest risk is when you actually succeed, you fail. That means you take a small market, and even if you succeed, you fail because there is not enough market out there and you're going to get eaten alive. The fact, how can there be a risk when you say I can go out and have 1 billion people live without dementia, Alzheimer, depression, anxiety, diabetes, obesity, autoimmune diseases? That's not a big risk. Even if I can get halfway there, that's a multi-trillion-dollar company. How is there a risk here? Even if I just solve one problem, that's a multi-100-billion-dollar company. So where is the risk here, right? So I think the answer, when most people look at this problem, they think of, is the glass half empty or half full? You talk about pessimism, optimism. Entrepreneurs, as an entrepreneur, I never even ask that question, is the glass is half empty or half full? My question really is, do I want to fill this glass? If I want to fill this glass, do I really care is half empty or half full? I'm going to fill that glass. And the only question I need to ask is, what do I want to fill that glass with? right? Not because the glass is empty or full. So my point is it's about completely rethinking how you think. The mindset of an entrepreneur is the key to success. And I think if any one of you is listening to it, if you ever want to learn more about it, I actually wrote a book for our children called Moonshots. How do you create a world of abundance? And I'll be thrilled to send the electronic copy of it. Anybody wants to read it. But my point is, it is the whole idea of how do you take the massive ideas and actually achieve them by simply about rethinking about how to solve the problem. So when even if going to the moon, people thought will cost $1 billion. Our mission to the moon is going to be under $10 million. And that's just completely rethinking how problem can be solved.
There have been entrepreneurs who have been extremely successful, like yourself, and there have been people who could not have as much success. What do you think is the defining difference between these two people?
So first of all, you have to rethink about what success is. Success can never be measured about how much money you have in the bank. Success is measured by how many lives you've been able to improve. And in that definition, the successful people are like Mother Teresa, right? So I mean, the reason the Mother Teresa and Bill Gates both are very, very successful is both are able to change millions, if not billions of people's life that to be better. And to me, that the success is. Success comes from actually going out and improving people's life, either through your service or through the product that you build or the services that you provide, right? So to me, the successful entrepreneurs are the ones that are absolutely obsessed about solving the problem. They are not obsessed about making money. The most entrepreneurs fail when they believe the only reason they're starting a company is to make money. Making money is a byproduct of solving a massive problem. In fact, most people who start a company to make money rarely succeed. If you look at the most successful people, they are there to solve the problem that they care enough to solve because they believe that needs to be solved. I mean, look at Elon. Elon is just an amazing guy. He didn't wait for someone to say, hey, don't start a car company. There has not been a car company created in 50 years, let alone the electric car company. Right? Everybody thought that was the craziest possible idea. And now you look at the market cap of Tesla, it's bigger than General Motors and Ford and Chrysler combined, right? My point is, you go out, nobody thought hey, somebody can come in and fight with Boeing and these massive, large aerospace company. And here is now SpaceX working with NASA to solve the problem of going that most of these other companies that could have won, but did not. Is because it takes a one crazy person to say enough is enough. And that's the reason people like Jeff Bezos, people like Richard Branson, people like Bill Gates, they are go successful because they never ever focus on what the purpose is. They only focus on the purpose and solving the problem rather than thinking about how to make money. And I think to me, that's just a key. I mean, as I said, Richard Branson to me, just one of those guys who's just extremely humble and has created the companies after companies in different industries simply by fundamentally rethinking how to serve the customer. So I think that is the key to me is really focusing on solving problems and focusing on your customer rather than focusing on making money.
So let us talk something about the kind of startups which we are trying to promote here at Tides. We have generally, most of the startups are B2B startups which have hardware products. You must be knowing that it is extremely difficult for hardware-based products to attract VCs because VCs generally go for the volumes and it is not easy to show volumes with the hardware product. How exactly or what exactly would be your suggestions to such kind of startups? How should they approach their market? When should they raise the funds? How should they raise the funds, etc.?
So again, it really depends. I mean, to me, more and more things that used to be in the domain of hardware is actually becoming the domain of software because software to some extent is becoming the new hardware, right? So, all the problems that needed actually the hardware, now you can use more or less the commodity hardware like, Internet of Things, and you can build the layer on top of that as a software layer. So that means you don't need to be commoditized. You create value by creating applications on top of that. Applications are what really the services that make money, and you can give away the hardware. So the key to the thing is not to be in the business of selling these low margin hardware. the value gets created by creating the applications, by creating the massively large data. So if I am starting a company, you have to, this is one of the key in building a business. That means, does your next customer that you're about to sign up benefit is the same as your first customer? So if you have 100,000 customer and they get the same value that your first customer gets, then you have created no value at all in the company, because in that case, you haven't created a flywheel where every customer who signs up is benefiting from the data that you have learned from the previous customer. That means you create the massive amount of feedback loop that makes your AI, that makes your machine learning better and better. Because once you create that flywheel, every customer wants to join you because they want to be part of the network. Because if they're not part of the network, they're outside the network and they can't see the value of that network. So whenever you create these things, don't create, I sell it to this company and they own their own data. I sell it to this company, they own their own data. If you can't aggregate all of that and make actually something that is a large data that you benefit from, you will always be in the commodity business. And the minute you can become at the large data company that learns from everybody else's data, then you can start to build applications that create massive value, even though in the beginning that actually the platform that you created may not have had a lot of margins, but suddenly with the data, you can create a mass applications that can be a very profitable, high margin businesses.
Now, is there, the startups which we deal with are mostly like from undergrad students, and they do not have sufficient funds with them when they start with. Obviously, they are filled with energy, a lot of exuberance, passion, obsession sometimes also. But funding is seen to be one of the biggest roadblock. Do you also agree with that?
No, not at all. The funding has never, ever been a roadblock for any innovation. Because, remember, the capital is not patriotic. Capital goes where the opportunities are. I mean, if you look at the things today, how much money has been poured into India in Flipkarts, and you pick a name you want, tens of billions of dollars. So no one can say the money won't go. You have to create a value. That means only reason the Indian entrepreneurs are not getting the money because they actually fall into this vicious cycle where they believe that VCs or they're not going to get funded if they think too big. So they think small, and people don't want to fund them because they're thinking too small. So they literally are falling into the trap. They think they're only going to get funding when they have very small niche market, because they go out there, I can do this, nobody's going to fund them. And the fact is they don't get funded because they're thinking too small. I mean, look, it's the same problem in Europe. When you go there and you tell people, why aren't you just thinking big? Because they say, because nobody's going to fund them. And every time I talk to a VC, he said, why are you investing in US instead of Europe? He said, because those guys think too small. Right? My point is, it is the trap that you fall yourself into. So there's no reason that India can't create the next Google or Facebook, because they created Flipkarts. They created many innovations out there. So there's no reason you can't be creating lots of innovation and get funding.
Great to hear that. Let's come back again to your story, sir. It's been almost like a long journey for you, and you must have definitely faced your own share of failures and success. Success is definitely everybody identifies. How exactly did you deal with failures and came up again and bounced back again?
The failure is a term that I just don't understand. So every idea that you have may or may not work. But if idea doesn't work, it simply becomes a stepping stone to a different idea and a bigger idea. Entrepreneurs only fail when they give up. Everything else is just a pivot. So you adapt and pivot, but you never fail, because failure means you have given up. And as long as you're not giving up, you never fail, right? And to me, there is no age. There is just absolutely nothing that should be stopping you from going out and solving the problem, right? I'm not 20 years old. I'm 61 years old. I still started a company and still kick ass of every 22-year-old, because I still work 18-hour days, 7 days a week, not because I have to, because I believe that's my duty to go out and solve the biggest problems facing humanity. And not because I simply want to do that because it's going to make me feel good, because that's how I believe I can create a multi-$100 billion company, right? So to me, I solve the problem. I love taking on big challenges because, these are the fun projects to solve. Imagine if we can understand what causes cancer and can prevent cancer. I mean, these are the fun project to work on. And when you do that, you create a massive company at the same time. So doing good and doing well at the same time are really the key to success.
Great. That's wonderful to hear that. So, I'm getting a lot of questions about again the present scenario, about the new normal which we are now living into.
Yeah.
Do you think, and if you do, I mean, which exactly business models do you think are now permanently destroyed, and maybe they have to go back again to the drawing board, rethink and restart, or changes something over there? And what exactly do you think this crisis would be a typical opportunities which it will come out from this particular times?
Every crisis is just simply a rethinking of rethinking of normal, right? So I think if you look at this in supposedly in this crisis, the healthcare market is just going through the roof. I mean, entrepreneurs are finding many sets of problems that are suddenly becoming apparent of in the healthcare system that they did not think existed, right? So whether it is now, look at the nutritional market. You cannot go to Amazon today and buy supplements. The market is just going through the roof because people want to prevent now. Suddenly, the idea of living healthy and actually building your own immunity so you don't fall prey to whether it's a COVID-19 or flu. Massive market. So I think the whole idea of digitization of the digital health market is going to absolutely be the massive market. Now if you start to think about, there's so many different markets that are going to be created because people may be working from home. That means the real estate market may actually have the things that have been going up may actually start to flatten out. You start to think about, can you create a virtual reality companies where people may be in different location, but they can actually feel like they are physically in the same place? Can you create a virtual rooms, virtual offices, the virtual places where people can meet and actually interact as if they are in person? Can you bring the tactile feeling of actually shaking hands, meeting people, and actually really being in that environment? The idea of distance learning, the whole education system will be completely reformed in a sense of really having to go to the classes and having a teacher teach you. Can you actually rethink the things where it can become peer-to-peer learning? So there are many of these models are going to get created, and your job is to start thinking about that all the old guard is dying. And when the old guard is dying, then a new king is going to be coronated. And can you be that new king?
Great. I'm getting a very interesting question. It's a very small one, but I believe that this is really something which also I would like to know from you. How do you tackle boredom? Do you ever get bored by what exactly you are doing, and how do you deal with that?
So first of all, I just don't. I mean, the things I work on is because I want to work on them. When something starts to become work, that means I'm thinking I have to do it because there is no, I hate doing it, but I have to do it. I go out and hire someone to run the company, and I go out and start on the next problem. Because to me, the only reason I succeed is because I care enough to dedicate my life to it, right? And the minute I feel I'm no longer having fun, I actually hire a CEO like a Moon Express. I thought the first 10 years were real fun. And now I thought, you know what, all the fun part is done. I hired a CEO. I said, go run it. I'm going to go start a healthcare company. And there's going to come a time where I'm going to say, everything I need to learn about healthcare, I have now learned. I'm going to go solve the education problem, or I'm going to go solve the agriculture problem. I'm going to go out and solve an energy problem, right? Because the problems are we're never going to run out of problems. Every time we solve one problem, that creates 10 more problems for us to solve. So I'm never worried about, as long as I'm alive, I think I'm going to continue to find the set of problems that need solving, and I'm going to keep doing it.
So one another problem which startups at this stage, at the young stage of undergrad, which they face is how to basically build a team. How should they identify their partners? And most of the time what happens, and especially with the startups with which we deal with, that they start at a bang and then at some point in time they fall apart, the company basically goes from toss and idea dies out. How exactly, what care do you take while building the initial team as a co-founder?
Yeah. So a lot of interesting things. So when you're looking for a friend, you want someone who is just like you. But when you're trying to build a team, you want people who are unlike you, people who complement you in the things you're not good at. So if I'm an entrepreneur, I got the strategy, I got the vision, I'm the external person, then you want your partner to be an operational person who is very detail oriented, someone who would hate having out a beer with, but someone who's going to go out and actually build the road while you're cutting the trees. So you need to build a team. And as an entrepreneur, you have to know you can do everything, but you're not good at everything. So being honest with yourself to say, what am I really, really good at? And what are the other things I can just do, but I'm not the best at? If you're not best at it, hire someone or bring a partner who actually fills that hole. And this mutual trust and respect is really the key for anything else. And then you have to, structurally, you have to put many of the systems in place. So when things fall apart, what would happen? And it's like any marriage, right? I hate to go into a marriage with a prenup, but when you start a company, you better have a damn good prenup, right? So every time I start a company, it's very clear who is going to have the voting rights, how are the decisions going to be made. And even then you say, you can come in as a partner, but everything gets vested over 4 years. And if you're going to leave after 1 year, all your equity gets wiped out. Right. So my point is, you have to start to put all the possible things that can go wrong and put the systems in place to actually protect the company and protect the ideas. So the idea in a company doesn't die. And that to me is really the key, is that having a great prenup to say, while things are still in the honeymoon period, is to be able to discuss and say, hey, if this happens, how would we go deal with that, and put all those things in place.
Yeah. That's great, and that's what exactly we have also seen in few of our startups. Things going sour. One student, Bandhu Shekhar Tiwari, he's asking about your views on entrepreneurship for the undergraduates, and why exactly you went for entrepreneurship and not gone for a placement in a company. I mean, what's the choice? How do people basically weigh their options?
Really, it's not about becoming an entrepreneur. Is not something you do because you want to be an entrepreneur. You have to really feel there is a problem that you care about to solve. So it's not you say, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, I'm just looking for a problem, right? You have to say, I really, really care enough about this problem to be solved. And that's the only reason you should become an entrepreneur, not just simply as a career choice, right? So unless you really are obsessed with something, you're bound to fail in whatever you do. So make sure you don't simply think it is a sexy thing to do. It will somehow attract a lot of girls because you're an entrepreneur and your business card says, I'm a CEO, bitch.
If I ask you, sir, in your opinion, we are talking about technology. IIT is known for new technology development. If you can help us to identify the emerging trends in the technology, say over the next coming decade, what will be your preference? Maybe top 3 or top 5?
Well, I mean, if you look at where the technology is on an exponential curve, that is where the opportunity gets created, right? So if you look at from a technological perspective, this is the first time where you have a confluence of many of the technologies coming together. So you start to look at the sensors. Sensors are becoming cheaper, faster, and smaller. That means you can literally now deploy sensors in agriculture, right? You can deploy sensors in human body. You can deploy sensors in every place on earth, right? That means you can monitor everything that's going on. The second thing is really the cost of analyzing the data, right? So if in terms of AI and machine learning, I mean, literally you can improve every single thing by building a great machine learning. You can predict who is going to go to the hospital. You can predict when the certain thing is going to happen. So you can use AI and ML. The third thing, that is cost of computing and cost of storage, is marginally zero now, right? You can fire up 1,000 cores at Amazon and literally compute any problem you want. The cost of storing, petabytes of data is literally zero. Right. So my point is, all of those things are now making it possible for you to be able to solve, millions of problems that were unsolvable, right? You can literally look at prediction of what the company's revenues are going to be by simply having sensors of how many people are going in and out, how many people are coming back with the bags, how big the bags are, and you can predict the revenue for the company before the quarter ends. Right? You can look at the number of cars parked in outside. You can look at what restaurants are popular where people are. I mean, you can literally start to think about hundreds and hundreds of problems simply by analyzing the massive amount of data by putting the sensors everywhere.
Okay. So, insight, sir. I have got a pretty unique question. Rather, I wanted to ask about it and I forgot, because in one of the videos you said that you have an interesting collection of meteorites, almost like more than 1,000 meteorites. So any specific, interesting experience you would like to share with us about how exactly that journey began, or is it like kind of a led to Moon Express?
Well, not really. I mean, I thought it's just one of those type of things that when you start to think about, you look up and you see these massive that we are not alone. And to me, owning a piece of the moon or piece of the Mars, or you're having a piece of all these asteroids, and they're just so beautiful. I mean, they're just so beautiful, and you're holding something in your hand. It just gives you that feeling of that you actually are not that far away, because you can touch it, you can hold it, you can smell it, right? So it brings you closer to the things that you want. And at one point of time, I was really fascinated by history, and I started collecting all of the Roman coins, and Julius Caesar coins, and Marcus Antony, and you start to really Augustus, and you start to feel that these were the coins that were given by Alexander the Great to someone, because they are all gold coins that have to be actually given for special occasions. And you're now holding a coin that Alexander the Great actually gave it to someone. It's like, my God, actually I am somehow connected to Alexander the Great now, right? So anyway, there's just a feeling of when you own something, you actually start to learn. So to me, it's all about learning. Everything I do is because I feel that's going to be great learning.
You must have visited several academic campuses of in the university in US, and you must have been a part of the incubation innovation ecosystem there also. I understand that you said that probably you are not very much in touch with what is going on in India, but what exactly do you think is doing something correct over there that we are seeing so many good startups with new global ideas from the universities in US?
And I think it is simply about people dreaming big, right? I mean, I have 3 children, and all of them are just doing some amazing, amazing entrepreneurial ventures, right? My oldest started when he was 16 years old, and built when he was in college undergrad, Kairos, which is now world's largest college entrepreneurship thing. And from there, when he graduated, he started a company. He sold that company, and now he has 5 companies that he has started, from affordable housing, in terms of taking a problem, saying when people graduate, they can, if they want to live in an apartment, they have to pay the deposit, and people don't have money to pay deposit. They can pay rent from their salary, but they don't have money saved to pay the deposit. So what he did, he said, let's go, can I create a $5 a month insurance? And instead of paying a deposit, I can insure the landlord. So he started a company just to simply pay $5 a month. And though now you don't have to have a deposit, so people can get into the rental. And then he started the senior care. He's saying people who are older, they can't afford to have a full-time person helping them. Can you do the Uberization of that? So whenever they need help, the person comes to them, and now a single nurse can help 4 or 5 people, and that reduces the cost. That's affordable senior care, right? And now he's building the same type of thing on, can you actually earn points that you can use to own a home by paying the rent on a credit card? So he's building a credit card company that actually earns the point towards owning a home by simply using the credit card to pay the rent. And my point is simply rethinking about the problems that are there and making the things more affordable. Our daughter graduated from Stanford, and she cared a lot about women's education. Guess what she did? She became part of the young startup company that actually was using AI to remove the gender bias in hiring. And now she's actually leaving. I shouldn't say that. I need to start her own company, right? And our youngest one, he graduated from Stanford also, and then he became a Schwarzman scholar. And he went to Beijing. He learned about it, and now he graduated. He's going to start his own company. So my point is because they believe nothing is impossible. And that's part of us as parents, is when the children are young, to let them know there's absolutely nothing that they can't do. So our job as a parent is not to take them to the water and make them drink. Our job is to make them thirsty. And when you make someone thirsty, they find their own water and they drink it, right? So our job really becomes easy, is to give them that everything is possible. Every time they would ask me, oh, this can't be done, I would say, what if it was possible? What if it could be done? What would the life be like, right? So really constantly challenging them to reimagine and rethink what is possible.
There are many questions which I think probably we have covered most of them. But one thing which I think is still left out is, and if I see it from the perspective of students, right now the campus is completely closed in India. Most of those students, they have joined from their homes. And we are not sure about whether they would be able to join maybe next semester or not, because of the situation which is going on. And there is a lot of negativity about the whole situation, that people are not sure about their jobs, their internships, what will they do in life in the near future? Do you, I mean, we need something, maybe some positive vibes from your end, because I know that you are
So
like,
yeah, so I think, honestly, anxiety doesn't solve any problem, right? So as I think it's going back to the Eastern philosophy that we all learn, in Gita, it is, karmanye vadikaraste. Your job is to not to worry about the outcome. You keep taking the action every single day without worrying about what happens. That means you can't control the world around you, but you control how you react to it. That means, for me, it was, for all of us, it's a big challenge about not being together, working together in the office because everywhere is locked down. Now, imagine the beautiful thing that comes out of it is it is the easiest time for you to be able to access the people that you always wanted to talk to. You can send them an email and say, do you have 5 minutes? Everybody says, sure, we can do a Zoom call, right? My point is that suddenly you and I, this without COVID, the chances of us finding this hour to talk would have been very difficult because we are so busy in our daily life. So my point is, there you have it. So the positive part that comes out of it, literally you can ask anyone, hey, say, would you give a 10-minute Zoom call? They say, sure, I will talk to them. Right. And my point is, so there is always the positivity, the CEO of a company that you wanted to work for. Now you can actually reach out to them and they can probably give you 5 minutes that they would have never been able to give you if they were not sitting at home.
yeah, that's great, sir. That's great to hear. And I think probably the students who are listening today can have some kind of motivation from whatever you have spoken. I'm really happy that we could actually tap you during this busy schedule. Maybe this is a very small interaction just for 1 hour, but whenever you are coming back to India next, we would like to see you in person in the campus.
Absolutely would be happy to do that.
So, any last comments from your end, maybe about how we can develop as an incubator, as an IIT, as a campus to thrive entrepreneurship over here from your experiences, and what exactly is, I mean, how should the students, young minds, they can actually approach entrepreneurship?
I mean, again, as an entrepreneur, your job is to dream so big that people think you are absolutely crazy. And I think falling into the trap of can I do something small that can get funded is really the reason why it doesn't get funded. So you have to have a massive dream and then you start to execute on small slices of that. But you have to know that by doing this, what your North Star is. What is the big problem you're trying to solve? So as you saw, when I started Viome, I didn't say we're going to do a gut microbiome test because nobody would have ever thought, oh my God, whatever, I don't want to join a company that's doing a gut microbiome test. What did we say? We are going to go out and make illness elective, right? And that's why the head of IBM Watson says, I want to help you solve that problem. If I told him, hey, I'm going to build a gut microbiome test company, he would have said, go have fun. Right? Nobody wants to work on something small. So I get the best and the brightest from the world because we set out this massive vision of what is possible. And then we said, look, first we're going to go out and understand the gut. Then we're going to go understand the human body by looking at the blood. Then we're going to start to look at the saliva. Now imagine if we can start to get all this data about what is going on and suddenly we can come up with the right set of nutrients that can fundamentally solve problems. Everybody says, oh yeah, I want to be part of that. And that's the reason we are able to get that thing. So my point is every entrepreneur has to have that when you're successful, what your vision looks like, even though you start here, but you got to know why are you doing this, to do this, and to do this, to do that. And that's how you're going to solve this big problem.
Thank you very much, sir. I think we are right bang on time. And again, I would like to thank you for sparing some time. It's pretty early over there. So thank you very much. And I would also like to thank the audience. Thank you very much, sir.